But because Shoghi Effendi wanted that the isolated believer in groups develop into assembly, made it mandatory that only the community where there are local assemblies, they can vote for the election of a national assembly. And I think the House of Justice, when they will find out that your number has increased considerably, the same method will become little by little universal, and all the believers have the right to vote through local conventions, which are made several months before Lisbon. Now remember that, because it's very important that we increase our membership, we increase our number of local assemblies, and so that we might have a universal election in every country for the member of the National Spiritual Assembly, which, by the say of the Master Abdul Baha, are to be secondary House of Justice. This is the primary House of Justice, the supreme body of the courts, and this one are secondary House of Justice. I said yesterday, and I mentioned it this morning again. The beloved Guardian wanted this complete separation between administration and teaching. And his plan, when he appointed the first hand of the course alive, was to create the organization of the propagation of the faith, hand of the course, and then in 1951, and then auxiliary board member 1954, and just before he passed away, just a few weeks before he passed away, in his last message, doubling the number of the auxiliary board members and create a body not only a propagation as before, but also a body for the protection of the faith. Now you must study these things because everything gets together and forms one unity. As we have said before, the local National Spiritual Assembly today are 114, even if some of them they cannot function because of a repression in their country. And then there is the fourth subtitle here. After that is the one concerning the obligation of a membership of a spiritual assemblies. I think that all local assemblies, when they are elected, they should refer to some letters which Shoghi Effendi wrote as early as 1922, which are in one volume called the Bahá'í Administration, and learn the wide range of activities a local assembly has, beside sitting once a month on a local assembly meeting, half sleepy, waiting for the coffee, and sometimes, unfortunately, filled with smoke, which is terrible. I've been in such assemblies, it's incredible, really. No smoke from the fire, but from human lips, which there is very little inducing of spirituality. The wide scope of the local assemblies are incredible. Do you know that you can publish publications? Yeah, you can make. Do you know that you can make extension teaching? Well, do you know that you can correspond with other local assemblies? The beloved Guardian encouraged that, even to write outside of the country, write to Persia, to Australia, to New Zealand, to anywhere. Keep the fire of a friendship and understanding all the time going. This is the purpose of a local spiritual assembly. Believe me, if any one of us would really, abide by the directives of Shoghi Effendi, we will have a very little time to sleep, actually, because our activity will be so great. And I think the time that has come, we should do that, because we have to prepare the world for this greatness of Baha'u'llah's revelation. And so, these are the obligations. I'm not going to read it to you because I refer you to this book of the beloved Guardian, and of course the House of Justice made this synthesis here. And then the House of Justice brings its own function on the forefront. And you know that the terms of a service, of a membership in local and national assembly are limited at the present time to 1 year. It has a great importance, especially in this evolutionary period of our faith, because this change of blood every year is spreading the knowledge of and the skill of administration among many friends. But the Universal House of Justice has reserved for herself the right to be in office 5 years. So the Universal House of Justice lasts 5 years. You know that. If you don't know, well, you learn. 5 years, the other 1 year. But in time, Shoghi Effendi said, we can extend the period of the service, and I hope and pray the day will come when we shall not be rushing with the tongue hanging out to a convention or stay 2 days and run out again and say, oh, this convention is killing everybody, something like that. We're going to have, perhaps in time, when we grow mature, when we grow wise, etc., we shall have extension of the period of the service, and it will be more economical too for the cause, because the expense of a convention are quite high all the time. How does the election function? The Universal House of Justice, when it sees fit, calls all national assemblies to send their membership, so that every elector that is a member of the National Assembly will be recognized and seated by the House of Justice as electors of the House of Justice itself. Here's something interesting. Many times they ask me, oh, doctor, like I wrote to the Actas myself now, you know, that's incredible. Why the women are not eligible to the House of Justice? You see? But the women who have the right, who are a member of the National Assembly, are the electors of the Universal House of Justice. And they don't have the duty of the member of the House of Justice. You will see how wonderful it would be with this little baby running around inside of the building Universal House of Justice crying, mama, 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 or something else. So now you can understand that. Abdul Bahá'í, his wisdom, gave it to a woman an exemption from this onerous task that is to be member of the Universal House of Justice. So, but you are electors, those members, and I don't know which assembly I saw that came to Haifa last year. There were about 8 women and 1 solitary poor man, and they could vote for the House of Justice, their child, you see. So motherhood is a privilege for ladies who are a member of a national assembly, motherhood of the House of Justice. Well, it's a very strange circle. And then the Universal House of Justice, these are A, B, C, D, E, F, G, S, 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 up to I. The House of Justice makes calls for the convention or for the election of the House itself. And generally is during the period of the Rizwan, between the first day of the Rizwan and the last day of the Rizwan. But with a few exceptions, the House of Justice always taken the first day of the Rizwan. And so the new election shall be taking place in 1979. It's 5 years from, it's 1979, yes, that's right. Was it 73? No, 70, what? Help me out.
78.
78, that's right, I'm sorry. 78. And the convention, or the practical functioning of the election is decided by the House of Justice from time to time as they wish to do it. There are no rules set, nobody can tell them what to do. They make their own decision, or they apply and execute their own decision. And then there shall be a procedure for those who are not able to attend. I don't remember exactly how many came last year, but quite a large number. But those who could not come, they sent the ballot by mail, or they entrusted the ballots to some member, one member who would go and bring the ballots of all the others. And again, this is a procedure which the House of Justice has made for itself. Then there may be possibility that the convention, the international convention, could not be practicable. There was at one time during the 6 Days War, and again during this Yom Kippur War, that the House of Justice could be in a position that could not hold the election. And then the House of Justice has made a provision already must be a solitary baby left there, isn't it? Poor child. Ah, yeah. It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. So the House of Justice will make a provision for that, and the instruction had gone forth to eventually hold the convention for the election of the House of Justice. So you see, all these things is part of what I would call granitic, let's call that, foundation upon which the faith will continue to function no matter what happens. If a member of if a member of the National Assembly ceases to be a member of the National Assembly before the election of the House of Justice, he has the right to vote. This is a part of the Constitution. In other words, if for some reason he has to cease to be a member of the House of Justice, and the call has already arrived from the House of Justice, he has the right to vote, even if he's not a member any longer. Well, that's a detail that perhaps there be one or two instances like that, but it's better to know. If the call of the election has come, and a member or two members of the National Assembly are compelled to go for reasons we cannot fathom now, he has a right to be the elector of the Universal House of Justice. Then there is a subtitle here about vacancies. If there are vacancies in the Universal House of Justice, the vacancies are of two nature. One would be physical death, and the other one, God forbids, expulsion from the House of Justice. Well, this everything's the Master speaks that very clear in the Will and Testament. And then in that case there, in this part here, it deals with the subject about substituting a member who is not able or has passed away and has to be substituted. But no member of the House of Justice can resign his services. He can only resign if he has the approval of all the other members of the House of the Supreme Body. You can't say, oh, I don't like it, I'm going. You can't do that. Or some other reasons. The other members must assent if he is to be freed or not. So that is another clear point. And then, as I said before, the House has no offices. The beloved Master, in his Will and Testament, said that the guardian is for life the chairman of the Universal House of Justice. And as long as there is no guardian, the Universal House of Justice has no chairman, has no officers, has no vice chairman, has no treasurer, and whatever you can imagine. They rotate themselves to chair just for the sake of orderly discussion. And Here I can say perhaps the functioning of the House of Justice is in departments. It's like in a cabinet of ministers, minus the Prime Minister. If they have a meeting, one of them, they rotate themselves either from day to day or from half day to half day. They function, or for a week. It's according to their desire and method. They function, and they function as what you would call coordinators more than chairmen. Because the chairman takes and gives the right of a word, where a coordinator does not take and give the right of a word, but sees that everybody is fairly treated. And that's right. So, if you ever received a letter, and I'm many secretary National Assemblies there, I've seen a few, when you get a communication from the House of Justice, it's not signed by a member, but it is sealed. And certain members of the House of Justice are authorized to sign with the writing, the Universal House of Justice. And that changes all the time. But no signature of individuals. But the seal is very important because it's a dry seal, which is impressed with a special punch, goes through the paper. And that is official. All the documentation that comes out of the House of Justice is marked with this dry seal. Even mimeographic statements are, if you don't see anything with a seal and written across Universal Justice, no matter what it says on the top, it is not acceptable. So, I was saying the House of Justice functions in departments. And I can't say that one department is more important than the other because they all function together. And they are all related to each other and connected with each other, otherwise there will be no perfect functioning. Well, but the two honors, most difficult ones, are the secretariat. You have no idea how much mail comes and how much mail leaves. It is incredible. And the secretariat has a method which I don't think is adopted in any organization of the world. Every document which leaves the House of Justice is classified, and when a certain number of these documents are reached, they are bound together in books, book form. Well, I don't know, we have any book form. A certain thickness, let's say about 1.5 centimeter, and these are put in serial. And no matter what you search, there is a reference always, you can go and find what you said before or something else. Most perfect organization, and it is a very, I would say, onerous, that is fatiguing, exacting task of keeping the Secretariat of the House of Justice. And we hope there was a young lady here, the one who was having the baby in danger, who has shown to me the photograph of the drawing of the new building of the Universal House of Justice. When the building will be completed, the House of Justice will have enough space to breathe in. At the present time, they are very cramped quarters because it was a pilgrim house to get only 8 or 10 pilgrims, no more than that at the time, and now there are 80 people working in it. And you know, it isn't. But when the new building will be in functional, then they will have everything will function better in the sense of speed, precision, and skill. And so, whatever records leaves the House of Justice is not only recorded, but is verified. And the verification is done by initials of the member of the House of Justice on the margin of the paper. So in these days of political maneuvers, I think our beloved Italy that has gone down the drain at the present time, there can be nothing like this can happen. There'll be no imbroglio, there'll be no deceitfulness, there cannot be anything like that. The House of Justice far above all this misery that we suffer in the world at large. And then we have another part, which is the sixth part, the sixth chapter of the by-election, which calls for local and national election. Now, this, as I mentioned this morning, this part here is perhaps the most binding tie that we have with the supreme institution of the faith. Everything is within the circle with the Universal House of Justice. We are a part of one entity, and you know it's like the human organs. If one organ doesn't function well, the entire body is affected. You must remember that. And of course, naturally, the organs which would not function very well, not in the human body, not in the human body, but in the Bible, they wanted that on the lower grade, that is the local assemblies and groups and sometimes national assemblies. But with the spirit of this chart we have today, we are all together in I would say, uninfrangible spirit of a collaboration and dedication to the cause of Baha'u'llah. That's very important. And so, let's see what the paper says. This for the two elections. And then the House of Justice gave us the right to review. The Universal House of Justice has the right to review any decision of any institutions over the cause. It does not matter which. Has the right to revision, and the revision must be accepted with good faith and with obedience. This is their right. Actually, it says any administrative body, and you know which are the administrative bodies. Local and national assembly and their committees are a part of the administrative body. They're all little appendixes around this central body. Individuals or an administrative body have the right to appeal to the House of Justice. You know, the right cannot be denied. Nobody can tell you, you can't write, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. The House of Justice, you have the right, anyone has the right to appeal to the Universal House of Justice. But if it is a case which is implying a decision of a local institutions, then the appeal should be made in a manner that the institution which is being appealed against is well informed. You understand? That's besides it being a law, it's a good manner, the law of good manners. It's very important, which is paramount. If you wanted to appeal a decision, you inform your body, and he said, my body, I am going to appeal to the Universal House of Justice for this reason, so and so and so and so. And this is part of the Charter. See all the rights and guarantees we have for the freedom in the faith. This is this part, and then we are coming to the end of this document, and it is the appointment of the boards of the councillors. You remember that according to the will and testament of the master, the guardian alone was the one able to appoint the hands of the cause. And with his departing, this right ceased and could not be transferred to no one. And so the Universal House of Justice, after deliberations and consultation with the hand of the cause, decided to build a parallel institution to the hand of the cause, who, by law of nature of my last 25 or 30 years at the utmost. And so in 1968 they appointed a board of councillors for continent, the same system as the beloved guardian had done with the hands. And these board of councillors have the duties and privileges to inspire the friends, to assist national bodies in the propagation of the faith, and through their body, the body of their board members, which was an institution created by the Guardian in 1954, to penetrate capillarily into the body of the believers through their local assemblies and individual believers. You see the picture now? We have this our friend, the astronomer, is going to make a beautiful design here to show with the central sun and all the astros rotating around it, and we're all revolving around it, and this is what is happening in the course of God. And there can be no error on that. And then, of course, not the auxiliary board members, but the members of the council, the board council of Continental Board Council, are ineligible either to local or national assemblies. But they are eligible to the Universal House of Justice. Whereas we, the hands, when we brought into existence the Universal House of Justice by calling the election, we decided no hands will ever accept to be a member of the House of Justice. And I say to myself, thank God. But the board members are eligible, the councillors are eligible to the Universal House of Justice, if they wish to. And then there is one last article which refers to amendments. And that's the shortest one is only 2 lines here, the very last page, and they say, the Constitution will be amended by decision of the Universal House of Justice when the full membership is present. They can change this document if all 9 members are present. Because the House of Justice here gives the authority to function on quorum on particular specific cases. They can delegate 5 people within the House of Justice to take a decision, not necessarily to have all present. But when there is a basic decision to be reached, the entire quorum, the entire membership has to be present. Now, this is briefly the content of this book. I think that there are some for sale, and you should provide at least 1 copy for every community and study it together. Now, I have finished with this subject here. So, it is now 10 minutes, 2:45, and at 3 o'clock we have a more meeting, and I leave it to our charming poet here, our chairman, what he wishes to do. As I said, we have some questions to ask you. Please come forward. Don't bring us through the theological tears because I'm not a theologian. Any question?
Okay.
Oh, my, many.
Tell us how it is.
1, 2, 3. Take the name. That's yeah.
Please tell us how it is to enter into the presence of the Universal House of Justice.
How do you enter into the presence?
You might have done it sometime.
Yes, to enter the Universal House of
Yes,
Justice?
yes. Because
You mean you wanted the physical description of how to enter
Yes,
the presence of the
no, how you feel. How you feel when you enter. You might have done it.
How do you feel?
Yes.
Oh.
Because it says that Bahá'í is present there.
Yes. Well, I think that it is a subjective matter, this, of individuals. I can only tell you my reaction. Generally, when I've met their meeting again, And then when you enter there, you found 9 persons smiling in their faces, not saying a word. They're pointing at the chair, and you sit down. And then they say to you, will you please read a prayer? And you read a prayer with them. And then whoever is functioning that day as coordinator, it brings you questions, or elicits a question from you. But you will feel a sense of tranquility and comfort when you are with them. Because the House of Justice will never say, reach a decision, like I could do and tell you do this like he has done with me. 3 o'clock or 3:15. They never say that. They never say that. They ask a question, you get an answer, and maybe either the day after or in a month they give you the answer. You see? They never make a hasty decision ever. So you feel this confidence that it is a real House of Justice. This is the feeling. As to your emotion, well, that's, I say, is a subjective question, is a personal question. I esteem highly everyone, every member of the House of Justice, personally. I think they're all fine fellows. I'm a friend with everybody. We knew when we were soldiers in the army and the same rank, you see. So it is quite different. But when they are invested with this function of a member of the House of Justice, well, you feel that it is the only place where you can find repose, tranquility, lack of fear. What can I tell you more than that? I don't know if I've answered your question. Try. Someday I'm sure you'll go. They will perhaps, if you go, you've been on a pilgrimage, you know. Or you've been once, but were you received by the House of Justice?
No, it was
that was before.
Commemoration.
Oh, you went for the commemoration. Well.
Good enough.
Well, you were just mentioning the new building of the Universal House of Justice.
Yes.
So this is a bit beside your subject. But since you were one of the instruments in erecting the shrine of the Bar, you may be able to say something about the background of the premises of choosing the design that we've now seen.
Yes.
For the Universal House of Justice.
Yes, I will.
Can you say something about that design?
Yes, I will. You know that the Universal House of Justice has come to the decision, or was quite some time ago, over a year ago, to build its seat, because, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, there is no space for them to work. They work in a hallway, in former bathrooms. Believe it or not, they have an office inside of the old water reservoir. They have made a room out of that. So, the below the Guardian made, in one of his messages, around 53, I believe, or 54, a statement in which he said that other buildings of a classical style should be built on this arc I mentioned yesterday, starting with the shrine of the Bab and ending with the shrine of the tomb of the greatest Holy Leaf. What is a classical style? Now, we have the eyes full of this misery we see called architecture nowadays. I beg your pardon, anyhow. I beg your pardon to all the architects are in this room. Had the Shoghi Effendi been alive, he really would have died on second death. You're seeing these buildings cropping up all over the world. Well, no, classical style. He himself guided, you read in my book, if you can find a copy to purchase, I don't know. But he himself guided Sutherland Maxwell what he wanted to incorporate in this. It's very interesting. Read that part of the architectural conception. And then you choose a composite style which is Eastern style and classical Western style. And when you say classic Western style, there is some Greek and there is some Roman in it. And they made this very lovely building. I'm very fond of it. the shrine of the Bab is unique. It is very unique. Then when they came to the choice of another style for the international archives, he himself picked up a Greek style. You know, the gardener visited Greece many times. He's seen the Parthenon many times, and he wanted building like the Parthenon, and there it is. Now, if you eliminate the Greek and the Roman, what style is left? The modern style? Baroque? Oh no, God forbid. There are some very fine buildings, Baroque buildings, but not very, I'm not very enthusiastic about it. But was it the time of the splendor of the church, of the Catholic Church, and all of Europe was disseminated with Baroque buildings. But there is a wonderful style of architecture which is called the neoclassic architecture, which started with our dear friend, he's from near Venice, his name will come to me. And this project, which this young man Amanat has presented, you see, the House of Justice asked all architects, Baha'i, non-Baha'is, those who they could be rich, to present a curriculum of their lives and the work achieved, not drawings. And on the merit of that, they picked up one architect. And so they picked up Amanat, who is a very young, promising architect. He's only 30 years old. And he excelled in his own country by winning a competition to build a triumphal arch at the time of the celebration of the 25th anniversary of the foundation of the empire of, what was the name? The first? Cyrus. And then he made some drawings, and the drawing he has made, this young lady there, that has a picture if you wanted to see it. He has made a neoclassic architecture building. Very serviceable, very functional. They have all the departments, to the point that, you know, there can be 9 or 19 members in the House of Justice. You knew that. And that you pass it along and you look at, and that he has made in a way that if there be 19 members, the rooms are already built in there. The personal office built there because of the heads of the department. And then have a secretariat, multiplications, translation department, postal department, incoming, outgoing mail, all kinds of things are in this very beautiful building. And they are columns 11 meters high. Now I'm nearly 2 meters. You multiply myself 5.5 times and you get, see how tall it is. Beautiful big columns all around this. A very nice little building. He came to see me. I knew him as a little boy, 10 years old. One of those fellows who shook my hand like you and run out of the door and come back again and shook my hand again in Tehran. And he came and we had 2 days together. And I think he's very competent, and I think he's going to do a very, very fine job. And if I can give you a secret, I hope I don't get in trouble. He's building the Iranian embassy in Peking, and he goes out in and out of China just like we go to the market and come out again. Secret. Third question.
I have one small question. The other question may take as long as you wish to. First is, only people of 21 or over can vote. Is this in the writing, or can it possibly be changed in the future?
Well, I'm not sure it is in the Actas. I don't think so. But I think it was a rule set by the Guardian on the standards of the world. I'm not sure. I don't want to be blasphemous and say something which isn't right. but the House of Justice anyhow, now it's settled. 21.
Forever or?
Well, they can reverse their own decision. That's right. You don't expect it to be 21 backwards again.
Back now.
You're 21 now.
But the other is, would you tell us something about the mechanics? You said that you don't want to go into it, how the International Office Justice operates, the mechanics of operation. Would you like to...
Well, I can tell you briefly, it's like in a ministry of a government. There are departments. There are, for instance, a 10 minister, a 5 minister, a 6 minister. There are 9 ministers there at the present time. Each one has a department. And there is I forgot to mention, there is Department of Finances. Department of Finances to secure, encourage, and approve all expenditure. Secure and approve all expenditure. It's a very large department because it deals with every part of the world. I would say more on expenditure than incoming funds. There is a Department of Research which is very important. This is really, I have my special admiration because they are delving in writings and tablets and letters and telegrams since the beginning of the Bahá'í revelation. And it is a tremendous work they're doing. And they are very few because you have to be a scholar. You have to be Arabic and Persian scholar, and you must know the English language, which is the language in which everything is being translated at the present time. And you might know that the House of Justice is planning to gather together and republish the writings of the Bab. There are many manuscripts and things that they should be translated and brought to the knowledge of the friends. And then the greatest research has been done in the writings of both Baha'u'llah, Abdullah, and Shoghi Effendi. And in my book I mentioned that there are about some 24,000 answers that Shoghi Effendi sent out during his lifetime, and many more may come. You see, Shoghi Effendi did not destroy anything, even the slightest piece of the paper on which there was a note, and everything was set aside. So, when he received a question, he answered, but he never kept notes of it. Not copy, no carbon copy, no file copy, no register copy, nothing.
We have questions.
No, I haven't finished it. No, I haven't finished it. Therefore, when the House started this research, asked everybody in the Baha'i world who had written to the Guardian to please send the answer, because the Guardian had saved their letters. And so they've been matching the answer of the Guardian with the question of the believer. And this has taken years before. They are about... there is a loop of about between 24 and 16 is 8,000 letters which have not been sent yet by believers. I met some believers recently. Said, "Oh yes, we have a lot of letters." I said, "Why don't you send to House of Justice?" He said, "Why should I send them?" See, and I think, friends, if you have anything in the nature of a writing, no matter if it is a small piece of paper, either by Baha'u'llah, Shoghi Effendi, or Abdullah, please send it to the House of Justice, even if you make a Xerox copy and they can have it. And so by doing that, the source of the knowledge of the House of Justice before legislature comes from the knowledge of what these figures of the faith have done before. And they cannot legislate on something on which there is already legislation. But that's another department. And then there is a department of a translation, which is very difficult because we deal with people who either speak French or Spanish or Urdu or something else, and they don't write in English because the language they don't know. And so we have some voluntary girls who have gone there, who are proficient in these languages, and they are serving there in the Department of Faith. And then, of course, there is a very large department of maintenance of the holy places. And that is also, they work on committees on that. They're not the part, but on that they work 3 persons on committee to make a decision. Well, anyhow, it's like a ministry of the kingdom of Denmark, for instance, or something like that. Perhaps even greater than that. Because of the branching outside of the country. In Denmark, they all speak Danish and Finnish. All the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is worried. But there, we branch out in all directions. Answer? Very well. Next.
Lena? Carl?
Is the Universal House of Justice that's going to decide about the auxiliary language at time coming, or who is going to decide?
No, it is the House of Justice going to decide, but I don't think they're ready to do it now.
Oh no, but...
Oh yes, they are. Oh yes, the master says so. The master says so. And I say the Universal House of Justice will decide on an auxiliary language. I hope it is English for my sake. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. You? Who else?
Paul here for now.
This is not my question, but I ask it on behalf of someone else.
Yes.
In the Kitab Act, there is that the time of fasting is from dawn to dusk.
Yeah.
And concerning the question of prayer, it is said that in the countries which the day and night are not equal, it should be done according to the hour, the clock. But it is not said concerning the fasting, because during the time of fast, nearly all parts of the planet have the same length of day and night.
Yes.
But recently, one of the National Spiritual Assemblies decided that the time of fasting should be from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Now the question is, isn't this changing the law of ACTA?
I told you don't ask theologian questions. You better address that to the House of Justice if you want. But personally, I think it's very rational. But you better, if you have any doubt, or your National Assembly has any doubt, ask the House of Justice if it is correct. And then anything which is gone with goodwill and with enthusiasm, I think God will forgive everybody, believe me. He's not there with a microscope to look.
Lena?
The members of the board of council and your civil board members, are they appointed for a certain time, or are they appointed for...
You're right, I've forgotten to tell you that. It at the present time is indefinite. They have not, the House of Justice has not set any limit. I think that during the urgency of completing the 9-year plan, it first say that they will appoint them for 5 years. And then the urgency of the completing 9-year plan has been set aside and continue to serve, and I don't know how long it will be. Of course, if they are elected to a national or a local body, they have the choice. They have to decide if they wanted to serve administratively or continue to serve. But if you are in the university, you will not go back to secondary school. That's the point.
In the Advent of Divine Justice, Shoghi Effendi says that the race prejudices for the Western people is innate, inherited. Am I correct?
I can't quote. If I had that memory, my dear, I won't be here.
But can you remember that Shoghi Effendi mentioned for you in that respect something?
I remember that in the Advent of Divine Justice, Shoghi Effendi speaks of the protruding ugly faces of racialism, nationalism, and so on. And that is, he certainly did not have much sympathy with racialism. That he was inborn in us, well, I don't know. Because, it's very strange. It comes to my mind in North America, in the southern state of North America, there's been a terrific racialism against the Negroes. But do you know how many of these, at the time of the colonies, and even now, how many white children of English people were suckingly milk from the breast of a Negro woman and call her mama? So how can we say that it is inborn? I think it's the atmosphere in the world, yeah.
I hope it's not a theological question. In the outside world, we see division of branches of executive, legislative, and judicial. Now, the question is, isn't Bahá'í Faith the universal house of justice embodiment of all three in one?
Yes, definitely. He asked you how they work in the parliament, and I say that they have a group of the three of making decision, or that when they have a basic decision, or they have to be all nine together. Let's say ordinary administration. Put a stamp on the envelope, but that's very simple. When somebody will do that. But if you make a decision of a message like that, elaborating a plan, they work day and night to elaborate this plan. I got a letter from them. He said, we are exhausted at preparing this plan, which is worldwide, enlarging more and more than has been known before. Oh yes, they are everything together. And it is in the Constitution. Yeah. This item which I read here tells you exactly what the duties are. And they say they are the judicial. I mentioned it this morning. They are all incorporated here. All of them. Oh yes, they are. And they're not in conflict with each other. That's the best part of it.
Kathy?
Talking about art, you know that Shoghi Effendi refers to the art which is today, that the constitution of art. He speaks very lowly of the art of today. And there are many Baha'is I know when they talk about music, about artwork, that they want to create something Baha'i. And I've heard that you hear this a lot in music, you hear this a lot in other art forms. And the question I want to ask, is it really the time for us to go into these activities, to try to create something Baha'i? I mean, are we doing this in an embryonic stage when we're not really ready for this, or should we strive to achieve something new, something not a constitution, something new?
Well, my recollection on this matter goes to almost 20 years now. And I remember that somebody was installing some of this so-called modern art in the garden. Shook, he said, this is not art, he said. But he said, what about the birth of the Baha'i art? He said, that's very far, long away. So this is the answer I can give it to you. But if we speak of art under the influence of this morbosity, let's call it that way, of a deprivation of art which exists today, well, we better stay home and don't call it a Baha'i art. Unless somebody will rise with a creative spirit, great creative spirit, and produces something great. Then we can say this is a Baha'i art. I wish you well if you want to start something.
Yes?
If there's no secretary in the Universal House of Justice.
Bulan.
If there is no secretary in the meeting of the Universal House of Justice, how the notes and decisions are kept?
Oh, there is somebody does that in turn.
Yeah.
Or they arrange it by themselves. There is no secretary, no. But there is someone who is always taking notes. Sometimes 1-2 persons are taking notes all the time. They are delegated time to take notes and then bring it to a place where they are interpreted and typed and distributed. Or it's one way of functioning. I can't tell you because I don't sit more than 10-15 minutes or maybe half an hour with them, and then I go away and leave them to their care.
In the evening, we have a meeting that we're going to see slides from the Faroe Islands and a film. Will we have the pleasure of
in the evening I will be very, very glad to say goodbye to everybody. because we're leaving early in the morning. This plane won't wait for us. They said, send a telegram, we shall not wait for you, so we better go in time.
We'll be here again in the evening.
So here again, we will be in the evening and we'll have a few words together. And but before I finish now, I'm sure Madame Farabi will forgive me for taking her time.
It's not my time, it's Palermo's.
Oh, you do like I used to do in school. I used to hide to be behind the defendant, sit in front of me, so the teacher will not see.
Waiting for the bell to ring.
Yesterday, Dr. Rafat really did the magistral work. You see, he has a great advantage over me because he is able to understand Arabic and Persian, which I do not understand. So my field of research or knowledge is very limited to the Western world, which is really a very, very, I would say, disheartening limitation I have. And there are so many stories about the Guardian. There was one that came to my mind when he said he was studying in Beirut. The beloved master picked up one young man, but belonged to the Baghdadi family. They've been giving great service to the cause since the day of Baha'u'llah. And he said, you'll have to go, his name was Zia. He said, you'll have to go to the medical school in Beirut and become a physician. And he paid for the tuition, and Zia Baghdadi became a physician. But during the time he was in Beirut, Shoghi Effendi was there following the law courses of education. And Zia Baghdadi, in one of his masterly reports, which is published in the Stars of the West, it's an ancient magazine, one of the very first, related when one day Shoghi Effendi arrived, well, he was vivisecting an animal. I don't remember if it was a raccoon or something, or a cat or something. I can't remember now. And
It was a wild cat.
a wild cat. That's a wild cat. See, there's somebody who knows this. You want go to Greenland and you'll have all the time in the world to read. Believe me. Well, and so that was the voice of the truth. And Shoghi Effendi was looking, and he wanted to know this, and he wanted to know that, and vivisecting, these courses in medicine they do in some universities, a comparative anatomy between certain animals and the human being to find anyhow some. And also, but the Baghdadi was vivisecting this wild cat. And Shoghi Effendi looked at everything, and in that time he was looking through his text of anatomy, and he was looking and listening to him and texting, reading and so on. And next day, he comes to Zia Baghdad, the place where he was working, office, whatever it was, studying, and he repeats word by word what he had learned the day before. Now that's something. Goodbye, everyone. And I have so many things in my heart and my mind to tell you, but time is inexorable. Just rush. So, completing what I said to you yesterday, I will speak to you on this briefly, on this wonderful document. Now, another examination, but no marks. How many of you ever read this? Raise your hand. Well, not too bad, about 2%. It's better than nothing. Yes. It is better than nothing. I said yesterday that with the Shoghi Effendi, since the passing of the master, he had this magnificent obsession to bring into existence the universal house of justice. If you are acquainted with his writings, you will see that from the very early days of his ministry, let's make it 1922, whatever he could, he made mention of the universal house of justice. And I said yesterday, as the bridegroom is longing for his bride. Everywhere. Universal house of justice. And when the universal house of justice will come into existence. He said it to me one night, this is not in my book. I long for the day when the house of justice will come into existence, and I can only do my work of interpreting and propagating. That was his longing. But the guardian is not anymore in this world, and there is no guardianship. And therefore, the institutions which the hands had the privilege to bring into existence the Universal House of Justice in 1963 is now the head of the faith. There is nobody above them but God. And the below the guardian in one of his writings said, when the Universal House of Justice will come into existence, they will make their own constitution. He didn't say, I'm going to do it. They will make their own constitution. He would have been the chairman of the House of Justice for life. And so would the following guardians. But it did not come to pass. And so the enlightened man of the Universal House of Justice waited from 1963 to 1972, I think it's 9 years if I'm right in my arithmetic, took 9 years to prepare this document. This document is the most valuable document we have after the one we have mentioned before. This is a document of the new and era fulfilling the plans of Baha'u'llah. I will speak to you briefly, and I want you to study this. It seems very simple, just few pages. Just few pages. I think it's about 16 pages, including the frontispiece here. 16 less 3 makes 13 pages. Right? 13, yes, that's right. It is divided in two parts. One is the Declaration of Trust. And I'm sure you understand the Declaration of Trust it is. It is a legal document, and at the same time it's a spiritual document, which tells us the purpose of the House of Justice, its functioning, and so on. And then the bylaws. Now, that's the second part, the bylaws. Bylaws are the rules by which the House of Justice can come into existence, did come into existence, and will perpetuate itself. And then the most important part is the connection between the supreme body of the faith and their electors, which are the members of the national assemblies throughout the world. That's the masters say that, and the local assemblies, and the mass of believers throughout the world. It is I have studied this document, and I remember that when it came into existence, I wrote to the House of Justice this document, and I said how wonderful it is. We have now such assurance of the eternity of the institutions the consolidation of our, what you would call, well, the word is not ties, but ligaments with the Supreme Body. We are a part of the Supreme Body through our electors, and they are showering, dispensing upon us a God blessing, because they are a body without error. This is very important. So, in this document, there is something which I will tell you briefly. I made some notes some time ago, and I happen to have it with me. I searched, Angeline knows how much I searched it yesterday to find it hidden somewhere in my baggage. It looks big, but it isn't. It doesn't matter. If you have a little patience, I'll let you go by 5 minutes to 12, like that. No. Well, I cannot add anything to this, what it is in here. I can tell you about my dreams, I can tell you about my swimming. I mean, it's not important. The first part, which I think is most touching, is the first part here, which it is an invocation. How many governments in the world have written their constitutions and putting an invocation at the very beginning? I don't know. Who is an historian? You are an historian. Who? There's something in the Constitution of the United States that says men are created equal before God. That's all there is. But then I don't know anywhere. The old constitutions of the old world, where they were crowned heads, says we are kings by the right of a God. And that's all. But no invocation. This invocation, we should read it a bit, it would be too long. So I made a little resume of it, and he says, it is addressed to the supreme and most exalted pen, Baha'u'llah. The supreme mediator, Baha'u'llah. He is I'm trying to be vain without glasses, I better put it on. The origin of excellent names, Baha'u'llah. The bearer of the light of unity, Baha'u'llah. And the bearer of the law of oneness. This is the preface. This is an invocation by the House of Justice so that this Constitution will remain a jewel, a shining jewel for 500,000 years, because the year before. Where is the source of the authority? Why we have a House of Justice? Where that springs from? Where it springs from? This authority. And the answer is, first of all, is the actas, the writing of Baha'u'llah, and then the interpretations of Abdul Baha and Shoghi Effendi. And if you wanted to become a scholar on the House of Justice, you can enjoy yourself because there is so much to put together. I have done a little work myself. Try to plan a second book. I don't know if I'll do it. Putting together to show how the destiny of this institution is preordained by God. Friends, there is nothing I like in the world, in this world of a government, of a political ideology, of a revolution, of a terrorism, nothing. There is nothing that be compared, and in the churches, nothing can be compared to this very simple document. There are no frills attached to it. The essence, what God dictated to them. And so, I said before, what is their authority? Because there is no guardian, the House of Justice are the head of the faith and the supreme institution of the Bahá'í Faith, and we all must turn on to them, or to it, whatever you want to use, what noun you want to use, to it or to them. Supreme authority. There's no one above them. The House of Justice is responsible for the unity of the friends and the progress of the faith. You will find that listed in here, but I made it in presentable manner so you will remember. And of course the hands, not having a guardian, we are directed by the House of Justice in the fields of propagation and protection of the faith. And another important point is something which is alien to most of you. In the Atlas, there is a contribution which is a taxation by Baha'u'llah, which is called the right of God. What belongs to God, we give it to God. And it is in Persian is Okokola. I hope I pronounce it right myself. Okokola.
Perfect.
At the present time, the friends of the Western world are not asked to contribute to the Okokola. But these dear friends from Persia and the East are the ones who are supporting the expenses administered by the House of Justice for the propagation, administration, propagation of the faith. The friends, the Persian friends. I don't go into details of what it is to be paid, but they do it gladly, joyfully. They know that the lympha, the lifeblood of the institutions of the faith could not progress unless we have means, material means. Unfortunately, there is something required that will permit to reach faraway posts, assist the pioneers, build buildings, buy temple land, build the temples, build the house of the seat of the House of Justice, publish books. You don't know how precious is this money that flows in by the generosity of the Eastern friends. Now they are the House of Justice administrator. Under the guardianship, the guardian was the administrator of the Okokola. But he's not there. They are the head of the faith. They administer the fund. Now this is where it comes to the authority. Now, what are the duties of the Universal House of Justice? But don't think because they are infallible and free from error, they have no duties. To the contrary. When we are getting up in the morning late and have a breakfast and we protest because the toast isn't good and the coffee is cold, they're already praying in the shrines. And they do go to the shrines and pray. I've seen them at 6 o'clock in the morning, roaming around, going to the shrine, pray. There is a meeting, they go and pray. Please, friends, tell me which government in the world, no matter which one you mention, goes praying before going to the office. I think they have if you allow me, they have a little communication by telephone with the devil to find out what they can engineer to wreck the world. That's what my opinion. This is my personal opinion. It's not in the writings, please. But the member of the House of Justice go and pray. And now, you friends, you better adjust yourself, because when you have a Mashukula scar, that is a temple, you will have your community, the local assembly and so on, they ready to go at dawn, they got to go there and pray. So you better get up earlier and earlier and earlier, particularly during the summer of Sweden, that at 3:30 in the morning you go and pray. I'm not joking. This is a new world. All right. So So which are the powers and duty? The two things parallel of the House of Justice. Now I'm sure in your heart you know what it is, but I wanted to either refresh in your memory or tell you so that you will remember. And pray for the House of Justice. Don't think that because they are infallible and free of errors, they don't need a prayer. Of course they need a prayer. Everybody needs prayer. Gardner himself sometimes asked you to pray for him. Abdul Baha used to say, pray for me. So, first of all is the preservation of the sacred text. Yesterday we were speaking about what the tragedy has been with the sacred writings of many religions. Because they've been interpolated, they've been tampered with, they've been poisoned, and so on. And the integrity does not exist any longer. So the House of Justice is the guardian, the custodian of the integrity of the sacred text. Nobody can tamper with them. Nobody can play with them. That's number one. And then, of course, to advance the interest of the faith of God. Well, this is our common desire, but the House of Justice, this is one of their duties. Advance the interest of the cause of God. What means the interest of the cause of God? Well, to spread the faith throughout the world, to protect the faith throughout the world, and so on and so on and so on. And then there is to expand and consolidate the administrative institutions. We saw that little beautiful map that the beloved guardian had made, and it just brought the tears to my eye because I had that map printed in Italy. Look at the bottom, it says Casetti, Tipografia Casetti, Roma. You look at that. And the other one too. 12 National Assembly. And look, we have 114 National Assemblies now. Protect and expand the faith of God until the faith of Baha'u'llah covers the earth as the sea. He says, Abdul Baha himself covers the earth. All the seas covering the earth. And connected with this expansion is to usher, that is, open the door to the world order of Baha'u'llah. I wish we could stay here about 3 weeks, really. I say this, I was telling to my wife, my heart is broken, we have to go. Because there is so much we can learn together to usher the world of Baha'u'llah. I can't resist myself, but the world is divided in two. There is a cleavage, a terrible cleavage. This is the world at large, government, churches, political parties, revolution, atomic bomb, armies, and everything you can imagine. And then on this other side there is the world order of Baha'u'llah. The hope of the world. The hope for everyone. For those in the street who are still asleep, for those who are in the couch still asleep, for those who will say that they are agnostic or they not believe the world order of Baha'u'llah. And this is one of the duties of the Universal House of Justice, to usher the world order of Baha'u'llah. Beloved Shoghi Effendi, in his last message, which was written about 15 days before his passing, he said the embryonic world order of Baha'u'llah. You know, embryonic is even smaller than the newborn baby. Imagine, that's what we are. So they passed 17 years already, and we still are in the embryonic stage, like something inside an egg which has not developed. Now, this is the duty, one of the duties of the Universal House of Justice. I think I'm taking too much time. The next point is important. In this, I made a division, and I said that this is the Baha'i world. What are we doing for the world? People come to me and say, why don't we start this and what's that? Friends, we are preparing a spiritual atmosphere in the world, whether these parts of the world, and not you here, but these parts of the world with their terrorism, with all the ugly things they have, are making a model of the world. We are preparing a spiritual aspiration of every man in the world. And when this confusion here will level down, the world will be ready spiritually to accept a unity, not before that. And this is one of the duties of the Universal House of Justice. Just imagine what they have to think every day about that. So it is to promote and achieve individual and collective Baha'i spiritual life. Now, friends, this is a great order to achieve a spiritual life. Mr. Afsai made a passing reference on the health and strength of the local assembly. If we do not have a spiritual life in our communities and in our assemblies, the world order of Baha'u'llah will never come. We had a dear friend in Rome, very charming lady, was a physician, was a federalist. She came all the time to our meetings, but she said, unless we have a world order in 6 months, I'm not going to be a Baha'i. So and that's true. People are away, they want to see it tomorrow morning. This is a long process. One time, a charming American lady at the table of the garden said, "Oh, Shoghi Effendi," excuse me, I was No. This is the inborn actor within myself. In school, I used to imitate the teacher, and I got a lot of trouble. Well, said, "Oh, Shoghi Effendi, please tell us, when we shall have the golden age of Baha'u'llah?" The gardener looked around and he said, "My dear, we'll take almost 500 years. Oh, Shoghi Effendi, I will not be here." He said, "Of course you will not be here." but he said, "But you and the other believers throughout the world will work fast. We can cut to this time in a half, we can cut in 1/3. Now remember, friends, that this is within us. The House of Justice cannot go preaching in the street like the Salvation Army and say the day of the resurrection has come. Give a directness to us. We've seen the plans they give. It's up to us to carry. And then we spiritualize the masses. And then we shall live the world order of Baha'u'llah." So friends, remember, this is part of your heritage and it is your duties beside the House of Justice. Well, anyhow. The captain doesn't go down in the engine room and put his hole in the machine. He can't do that. Impossible. Like the gardener could not do that. But we are the oil and we are a part of the machine. And if we don't put the two things together, friends, let's go to bed and sleep for the rest of our lives. That's true. That's true. Some of these Christian sects that they are preaching all over the world with the Texas petroleum money. They have missionaries everywhere. They promise the kingdom of God. Sometime I ask it to them when it's going to come, when the Christ will come from heaven. So let them wait for it. We know the way. And to foster the illumination of the souls of man. Look, friends, this is something. Foster the illuminations of the souls of men. We must start in our community to illuminate the souls of men. We can't wait for the House of Justice to give a little pinch of something and we are illuminated spiritually. It's our life, reflecting the divine virtues. It's very important. Very, very important. I'm not going here to preach anyhow. I'm going to tell you the duty of the Universal House of Justice. And then this power and duty includes also laws. What laws can the Universal House of Justice enact? The Universal House of Justice can enact laws which are not in existence in the sacred writings. Not only that, but they cannot change none of the laws of the actas and the interpretation of Abdul Baha Shoghi Effendi. They cannot do that. But they can make laws. And not only they can make laws, but if in 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, 3 days, they come aware that the laws is not valid anymore, they can reverse their own decision and make a new one. But they cannot infringe or change the laws which are a part of our sacred scriptures. That's understood. Very well? Forward. And now, one of the prerogatives, perhaps the most important, which I mentioned before, what the Shoghi Effendi said to me one day, is the interpretation of the writings. The House of Justice cannot interpret the writings, but the House of Justice can clarify obscure parts of the writings. And you will have to think what can be something obscure, something which is not comprehensible to our mental development or to our degree of spirituality. But they can. That's right. It's not interpreted. So that's part of their duties. This is everything so beautiful. Remember, the House of Justice doesn't do by pushing a button or opening a switch. It's we. We have to follow what the House of Justice has decreed for themselves and enact these deliberations here. And the next one, the development of a countries and the stability of states. The development of a countries and the stabilities of states. Who's going to do that? The House of Justice from Haifa? We are to do that. We have to keep a good relation with all the people of the world. We have to keep a good relation with governments of the world. Remember all that. Baha'u'llah has given us the way. But this is the way. The influence now, there is a gentleman here, Mr. Mehdi Navidi. He's got a little brother. I think he's younger than you, isn't he? Little brother. But he's also getting gray. I saw him getting gray. Who has been spending the last 18 years, 17 years since Shoghi Effendi passed away. Going from one country to another, from one continent to another. Oh, I don't know. The poor man, I'm surprised he's still alive, really, because of the suffering and the fatigue from government to government, to make possible that the faith is recognized, to make possible that the influence, the spiritual influence of the faith on their countries will give them luster. This is important. And these things we must understand. Now, let's go on. If you want to know more, ask Mr. Navito. Now we have an important point. I spoke yesterday about the ark, the big boat that arrives, sails, and stops on Mount Carmel. And I say that that's the administrative order, and the people of Baha are the member of the Universal House of Justice, and this is the spiritual and administrative center of the Bahá'í Faith. Haifa and Akka. Mount Carmel, the seat of the institutions. Therefore, the Universal House of Justice has in its constitution to preserve, to develop the spiritual and administrative center in Haifa and Akka. And we see that since they took power in 1963, what they have accomplished. They must administer Bahá'í affairs world over. This is your poem, the honey lips, they fly coming around me. He's a magician, beware. Well, anyhow. I say that the Minister of Bahá'í Affairs of the world over and prevent abuses of the privileges Now imagine that. Prevent abuses of privileges within and outside of the faith. Within the faith and outside of the faith. So friends, any one of us who has an authoritarian nature, you better sell it off. Auction, get rid of it. Because there are no privileges in the faith. The greatest privilege in the faith is the love of God, and if you have it, my dear, nothing will go wrong with you and your community. Then administer funds, endowment, and property. So this is something tremendous. They have a department. Really, in my heart, I feel sorry for those 9 men there who have their life is completely dedicated to the service of the cause. Whatever the turn, Bahá'í. Look this way, Bahá'í. Whatever there, hello, Bahá'í. Nothing. It's all around them, constantly, from morning to night. Constantly, nothing else, no other thoughts. Once in a while they take a recreation and have a little picnic, but that's only a temporary matter, and then they go back to work. And it is a taxing, a great taxing, physical and intellectual sometimes task. And then the Universal House of Justice functions like a court, a judicial. Well, I can't go into details, but you know, when the Below the Guardian established the International Bahá'í Council, which was at that time appointed by him, wanted that we establish some courts in Islamic states to counteract the Islamic courts. Because you know, many countries, including Iran, all the Arab countries, they don't have a courts of law like we have. I mean, they are the judges, right or wrong, corrupted or non-corrupted, they would dispense this administration of justice. They don't have. When a mullah says something, that's the law. And so he wanted to establish. But now that the House of Justice has come, the House of Justice has the judicial duties to function as a court. And this judicial duties is to adjudicate the disputes, of course, within the pale of the faith. I don't go into details. I hope we have no disputes. But anyhow, if there should be one, the House of Justice is the proper authority which will make a decision. And then it will adjudicate also cases of a violation of the laws of the faith. There are many violations that I cannot speak to you because perhaps it's not the proper place to tell you. But there are constantly many violations of the law of the cause. And you know, in the Western world, we have only 5 laws to observe. And those laws, some of those laws cannot be enforced because there is no means we can enforce the law. The law of the prayer is one. Obligatory prayers every day. Then there is the law of the fast. We can't enforce. I'm sorry I say this, but it hurts me. I've seen people, they say, oh, I can't take a fast because I get so weak, and then they puff cigarette all day long. Of course you get very weak by puffing cigarettes. This is another territory. I don't want to enter into it, but you know, there are a certain enzyme were produced in the liver which help our digestion. And these enzymes are destroyed by tobacco. Now, if you want to keep on smoking, anyone who will smoke, please do. But your life will be shorter in the service of Baha'u'llah. I can assure you that. Now, I'll close the parenthesis. But this is something you cannot enforce. This is another the law of the fast. And so on, and there are others, but I don't go into details anyhow. And in the judicial case, the House of Justice has the right to decree Sanctions. One believer yesterday was asking what kind of sanctions they are. They can't put you in jail, they can't do nothing. They might deprive you of voting right, which is only an attribute of the National Assemblies, but they can fine you. Monetary, when they touch the pocket, they hurt you. Everything hurts you when they touch the pocket. You know that. So, they haven't started yet. And I hope we won't need that. But their sanctions might be of such a nature. And then, the eagles in the Capitol Hill of Rome will be screaming. I say that because Rome is the source of all legislation for the civilized world. And I be proud of myself for being a Roman. And the House of Justice is a guardian, not in the sense of the guardianship, they are the guardian, the custodian of a divine justice. We hear some of these political parties, they speak about justice, but the word divine doesn't enter because they belong to an ism where God does not enter. You see? You can imagine, you have imagination of these political parties that don't believe in God and they want a justice. What kind of a justice? Man's justice? There is no such a thing. Impossible. There is no such a thing. There is a little story. This to release your tension. In a kingdom they were looking for the just men. And the high priest said that we can have a justice established if we can get the shirt of a just man and bring it to the king. And then he shall wear this shirt and it will be justice forever. And so he sent the heralds and scouts all over the world with the trumpet. And trumpet, look, who is a just man, who is a just man, a just man, who is a happy man? Couldn't find anybody. And there was one day left. If they didn't bring the shirt, the head would go down. And so they were in the field in despair, and they saw a little shepherd with playing his flute and the sheep around. And they say to him, are you a happy man? Yes, he said, I'm very, very happy. Do you have a justice in your heart? Oh, he said, the greatest justice because God is within my heart. They jumped on him. He had no shirt. So friends, never mind. And then they have the duty to enforce the decision. Here they are the attributes, the titles have been given to the member of the Universal House of Justice. Yesterday I read some myself from the tablet of Carmel. There is are called the man of justice. No, there's nothing. Yes, it's just No, this is fresh water won't do that. Man of justice. Then the one I read yesterday that the people of Bahá'í mentioned in the book of names. He said, and the people of Bahá'í mentioned in the book will come out of the ark. These are the title of Baha'u'llah's given to them. People of Bahá'í mentioned in the book of names. The trustee of a God amongst the servant and the dayspring, which means the rising of the sun, of authority in his countries. And remember, all the countries of the world are God's country, and the member of the House of Justice, the Universal House of Justice, are the trustee of God for all these countries. This is important. You know, in local assembly, national assembly, sometimes we are influenced by opinion of the believers. I have seen recently, in some cases which I don't want to discuss with you, the believers gang, I'm sorry to use the word, but it's a gang together against the decision of the assembly, and they wanted the assembly to change the decision. That's no good in the Bahá'í Faith. member of the Universal House of Justice, and they should be also member of the Secondary House of Justice, which is the National Assembly. They are not responsible to the believers for what their decision. God forbids that they will have another political party. You see, they cannot be influenced by feelings and opinion, even if it should be, as they say here, even if it should be a mass of a believer. You see, they cannot be influenced. This is equity. This is justice. And then they must preserve the right of an unfettered decision. Unfettered means they cannot be chained to make a decision. And not only for themselves, but for the entire Baha'i world community. And then Baha'u'llah says this for them: God will verily inspire them with whatsoever He willeth, and this is the source of their infallibility. Individually, they are like men, like myself and you, even if you're a girl. But they, when they are in a collegiate meeting, they are infallible and free of error. And I think we have had an experience now of about 12 years, and we see how the faith is progressing under their leadership. Now, friends, it's 10 minutes to 12. How long you wanted to go? We go as far as what?
Yes. We have around 12:30, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Giving me about 15 minutes more. Can you bear it?
There has come a request from the friends. They request you that in the afternoon also, there are plenty who want to come here and listen to you. The time is running short. 1:30 to 3 o'clock also.
Will you write a poem again?
Yes, I have already done.
Well, I don't know that.
So then we continue anyway, at least 15 more minutes. 15 more minutes.
All the shadow of me will leave at the summer school. All right. Friends, I made a drawing here. This is not good. Where is Nelson? He's an architect. He could come and make a wonderful... Where are you? Where are your husband? He's taking care of the babies, so that's good. Better than that. Then come here. One night, Shoghi Effendi came to the table, and you know, when the garden gave a gift which was prepared in the most attractive manner. They had these Persian silk handkerchief that large, and he had something wrapped in that. He gave me several gifts, which I still treasure, all wrapped in this thing. He said, I want to give this to you. And I opened it, and there was in it this is a base of a wood, very thin, a base of a wood, very thin, like that. And here on hinges stood a glass. I'm looking at, if you were to look, it would be this way. And this glass, there was a picture, and there is a little pole holding it, and there is a picture. There was a picture of the tomb of the greatest holy leader, Bahá'í Faith. And he said, Ugo, this has been in my desk for a long, long time. I want you to have it. This is the symbol of the Universal House of Justice. And I want you to keep it always in front of your eyes. Well, of course, when I'm not at home, I'll have to keep it mentally. And he said, the believers and the National Assembly and the dome. He said the National Assembly will sustain the dome, and we must hasten the formation of the National Assembly. This was before we added the 12th National Assembly, was Italy-Switzerland. And he said that the dome is the Universal House of Justice. We must hasten for that. I have it at home, if you honor your visitor, not altogether because you cannot enter in the room. You will see this thing here standing with the back to the light, and every time I pass it, it's on a desk. I see the... I think there are 8 columns. But you know, we have 114 columns. And in time, you know, the United Nations has given a statistic of about 240 nations, some are not free yet. They are still part of a protectorate, entanglement with the influence, spheres of influence, etc., etc., etc. But when there will be 240 columns to sustain this dome, believe me, it is going to be a great day of rejoicing. I may not be here, I'm sure, it is true. Because, however, you just keep your hope. There'll be 128 at the end of the 5-year plan. And then it will go on. And of course, that's the plan that the House made, but if there should be an independent country, which will come to independence within reasonable time, and there is the possibility that the House will call immediately for the election of a National Assembly. And so, this will be looking like this. This is the dome. Yeah, right? And then it will be looking like this. There'll be so many columns. Well, I don't know. My arm is getting so tired of making Anyhow. This, that you cannot see through between one column and the other. And this is our duty. To hasten the... So this dome will not... suppose you do that, I'll show you something which is... Suppose something goes wrong, and this column crumbles down. Oh, because 2, 3, 4 local assemblies have failed, they didn't re-elect them, they were too busy doing something else. And so there could be no election of a National Assembly. And another one will fall down because of something else. And another one will fall down. You know what happens already. This will tumble over. There is no institution equal to that. The Universal House of Justice in the world. I've made a study. You can compare it to Islam, you can compare it to Christianity, you can compare it to Catholicism. There is nothing like that. Impossible. They cannot conceive that way. Baha'u'llah's conceived it, it's not my idea, Baha'u'llah made it. And that, these institutions will last into eternity, but we must support and strengthen them. You have a plan now, 5 years, it's easy. Do the easy thing first. And the God used to say to me, I always do the easy things first and take it out of my way. It's right. In life that way, I've become myself that way. Easy things first. The difficult things between one good night of sleep and the next good night of sleep, you found a way to solve that too. It's true. So, friends, it is 12 o'clock. I should be, now that they have given me the time, you see, how generous they are, this committee. So I'll spare you. And we can terminate now, and you can make yourself pretty for your luncheon. And then I will speak to you about the bylaws and something else. All right? Everyone. We shall continue the presentation of this document, which part of which was introduced to you this morning. And that the part we introduced this morning was the declaration of a trust. To complete that, for those who have not seen it, you see, there are the signatures of the 9 members of the House of Justice, and the seal of the Universal House of justice too. The order, I'll send me a bird, one of those birds he introduced this morning that fly around and bring it. No, I can't send it now. I need it. Well, anyhow. The order in which their names are written is alphabetic order. There is no distinction, higher or lower, nothing. Only at time of election. The one who convenes the elected member is the elected members, plural, is the member that has the highest number of votes. But there is no special function. I told you before, there is no chairman, there are no officers. Then, if we have the time, I can explain some of the mechanics by which the House of Justice operates, but not now. Now, this part, the Declaration of Trust, I think I have given you a fair, good presentation, and now we go to bylaws. Bylaws means regulamentations or rules by which the Declaration of Trust is to be applied. And it starts with the preamble, an opening, and then there are different points of which I'll give you a summary of it briefly. The membership of the Bahá'í community in the world is by men and women who have reached the age of 21. Those are the ones empowered with the right to vote, to elect their delegates, who elect the National Assembly, who elect the Universal House of Justice. So as you see, it is a universal concurrence in the election of the Universal House of Justice through this mechanics. How do you do, Mr. Anderson?
Excuse me.
Please.
You should excuse me for interrupting you.
No, that's wonderful. I'll take a breath. This is my personal opinion. These are political maneuvers to increase votes to certain specific political groups. Anyhow, the House of Justice has been questioned on this matter of age. The House of Justice says it remains 21. So, you know that. But youth, from the age of 15 until they become voting members, can participate and should participate actively in the life of the Bahá'í community. And Shoghi Effendi, so many years ago, he said that, this is very interesting, and members of the National Assembly, please take note of that youth can be member of a national committees, which is the most wonderful training for them the day they can step officially in administration. So, let's pick up the genius in our midst from the age of 15 to 21 and put them to work in national committees and see how wonderful things are going to go. Right? Now, the part of these bylaws is the one which concern the election of local spiritual assemblies. Now, in other times, in different Scandinavian schools, I've spoken of the importance of the formation or election of a local spiritual assembly. And I mentioned to you that it is the base on which the entire world order is established. And when we have been guided by the Guardian, or requested by the Guardian to have a local assembly, and more and more and more, and now by the Universal House of Justice, it is not because of our statistical records. They say, oh, we have so many assemblies, because they are the focal point around which the Bahá'í communities are being created and evolved. And it is absolutely indispensable that whatever there is a believer, there shall be a group, and in time there shall be a local assembly. And so the House of Justice says that standard, definitely, is that the election should take place on Rizwan of every year. That is, on the 21st day of April, that is the first day of the Rizwan. But there is a wonderful gift to the Baha'is who are working on a 5-year plan, that during the 5-year plan, that's not part of this constitution, but it is already a decision reached by the Universal House of Justice. You can form an assembly anywhere as soon as you have 9 members. So remember that. But this is not applicable to localities where there was an assembly and the assembly disbanded. They did have to wait until the 21st of April again. But before that, when you have 9 members, immediately make a local assembly. Immediately, without waiting. And this is a great advantage because instead of waiting for 1 year until the 21st of April or several months, they can start to function at once. And then there is a chapter again which speaks about the national spiritual assemblies, how these are elected, and I'm sure all of you know that it is through a system of delegates, and which are, in many countries of the world, like Iran, America, Germany, and now Great Britain, the United Kingdom, all the believers can vote for the election of the delegates.